I'm still inspired and humbled by the desert tribe and their rustic food, but I have to admit, I'm a boy who just can't say no to luxury. This is the magnificent Umaid Bhavan Palace. I'm here to see how the chefs turned the simple but delicious dishes I saw in the desert into rich, rather sophisticated royal cuisine. This incredible building is the home of the Maharaja, who is the king of Jodhpur, and is considered to be one of the largest private residences in the world. But even a king doesn't need all of this. Most is now a luxury hotel. He lives in a modest third of the building.
Hello, welcome to Umaid Bhavan Palace.
Wow! This is how the Maharaja is greeted on his arrival. I feel very honored. Food has always been the heart of palace life. For centuries, cooks have worked in stately palaces, and their recipes were a closely guarded secret. It was a matter of prestige to serve unusual dishes, and royal cooks were always encouraged to experiment. Here the chefs still cook to impress, as their main guest is the Maharaja, but he's on holiday, so I'm having a taste of his royal living. Just like me, the Maharaja is passionate about food, and one of his personal chefs, Juba Bastakuti, is going to show me a humble dish that he's made fit for the king. It's an unusual vegetarian recipe called pitor ka saag, which is a chickpea flour dumpling in a yogurt sauce. Enough of the talking, let's get cooking because I want to see how it's done myself. Where did you get your inspirations from?
Rajasthani food is something completely different if you compare it with other Indian food, because if you see the ingredients, they are completely different.
They are completely different.
This place being a very dry area, you will not find a lot of green vegetables here.
No, and so it's a challenge for you.
It's a challenge for us, but at the same time it is interesting.
Yeah. Rajasthani cuisine is completely dictated by the climate from region to region. Here, the arid conditions mean more dried ingredients are used, and the need for spices to maximize flavor is even greater.
So this is the red chili powder, which goes with almost everything.
Yeah.
You can't have Indian food without red chili.
Any chili. Exactly.
Okay, this is the turmeric powder.
Yeah. That gives a bit of color.
So that bit of color and a taste at the same time.
Yeah.
And salt, of course.
It's almost like making a roux, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a roux, and the roux generally you make it with butter.
Yeah.
But here I'm using yogurt and water.
Sort of a runny dough consistency.
And the best way to know whether it is done or not, you just lift it a bit in a spoon, and it is still not done. It should not fall so easily.
Yeah.
It should take time to fall down. It should not run.
It shouldn't run.
And once I toss it up with gravy, it becomes pitor ka saag, because here saag means anything with the curry or vegetable is called saag.
And because we know saag is spinach.
Spinach, yeah. But here anything to do with vegetable is saag.
Saag. So it's not even green. So this is the desert saag. Right, okay. So this would be the main vegetable dish.
This will be the main vegetable.
And then you have an accompaniment to go with it.
Yes.
This gravy looks just like the curry I saw the Bishnor tribe making. Chef, this is exactly what I saw in the desert. The color, the aroma, the sauce, the whole thing is exactly the same. Back in the desert, the curry was made from basic ingredients sourced from the land. But at Umaid Bhavan, Chef Juba is creating a truly royal version. Chef, do you get nervous cooking for the Maharaja?
Yeah, initially when I was new here, I never knew what his taste is. Now I'm pretty comfortable, because I know exactly what his taste is.
So what is his taste actually? What does he like?
His taste is something like he really wants to try something new.
Yeah.
He is a person who travels a lot.
He's got an eclectic palate.
Yes.
And therefore he likes European food as well as his Rajasthani cuisine.
The pitor is set now. I'm adding this onto the gravy.
Being at the desert, I noticed that they've used exactly the same ingredients, but it's been made in a completely different manner. So here it's been made into almost like, it reminds me of polenta, but but it's not. It's been cut into slices and then it's going to be fried and then put into a sauce. So basically he's used yogurt, he's used gram flour, and he's used certain spices, and that's it, and has made a very rich royal dish. I hope it tastes as good as it looks. In Rajasthan, it's common for a meal to be served with a variety of small dishes, just like a taster plate. That's just absolutely amazing. I'm really staggered that the most simplest ingredients can then be transformed into something quite wondrous. And it's amazing that you get these simple flavors which just hit you in the palate. I hope to create the same subtle flavors with my own dish. I'm making a spiced vegetable polenta. I know it sounds ridiculous, but remember when I was at the desert, then I saw the chef at the palace create the most simplest dish into something which was really fit for a king. And now I've taken it a step further because I've thought, well, why not use polenta? Polenta is a form of cornmeal which we tend to use even in Indian food, and in Rajasthan they use corn kernels, or they use maize, or they use millet. So here I've got 800 milliliters of water. We bring it to the boil, and then you add some salt to that. So the cornmeal goes in, do stir it, and do just really work vigorously so that it all gets absorbed quite nicely. Corn flour is widely used throughout Rajasthan, and unlike most other flours, it blends to a smooth cream when mixed with cold liquid. This means no nasty lumps will form, and you don't need to add any fat. But I want to make my polenta rich and indulgent. The Italians always put butter and they put parmesan. They really make it luscious. So I'm going to make it luscious with just adding some clarified butter. So it becomes nice and moist. And if you wanted to, you can really add some seasoning to this, a bit of salt, pepper. I sometimes put a tiny bit of chili powder, which just gives it a bit more flavor. So if it gets terribly thick, you can always loosen it slightly by adding just a bit of water. You can see it's all coming off very clean from the pan now. So you're looking for a lovely consistency, almost like porridge. I get my influence from all angles, from the Middle East or from European, Mediterranean ideas, and I try and integrate those ideas and create my own magic. And it's how you bring these flavors together, how to put the sweet flavors with the savory flavors, and that to me is really important. The polenta sauce is ready. Now for the vegetables. My personal favorites for this dish are broccoli, depodded broad beans, and carrots. In a pan, add 2 to 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, a pinch of asafoetida, which is a resin from the fennel family, 1 teaspoon of both cumin and fenugreek seeds, 6 tablespoons of passata, and give it a good stir. Then add your cooked vegetables. The smell of that fenugreek is just extraordinary. And I'm going to just add a tiny bit of water just to allow that to just cook. You can see how delicious that is starting to look. The flavour of the dried fenugreek really lifts it. And I'm going to now add a bit of salt. In many parts of India, there's a huge variety of colourful and delicious vegetables. But in Chutney, it's the gateway to the desert, so less of this vibrant produce is available. The polenta's been cooked, and now we've got our vegetables in with the passata, and I've added a bit of water. And do you know what? I'm going to use some red onions. I'm going to chop it very finely to give the vegetables a bit of a crunch. I'm going to give it a bit of a taste. One always needs to taste it. See, there's a lovely sharpness from the tomatoes, so it just needs to be adjusted with a pinch of sugar. And you can see this is absolutely gorgeous now. Just chop up some coriander. In our food, we always love coriander. It always does lift everything. This is India's answer to parsley. Now it's time to serve this delicious spiced vegetable polenta. Now this is just extraordinary because you've got this wonderful depth of flavour from the vegetables. You've got the flavoured tomato sauce with the fenugreek And then you've got the tempering of cumin and the asafoetida. It all does do something wonderful. And then all we're going to do now is to add lovely juliennes of ginger to give it a bit of punch with some coriander. One of my favourite accompaniments for this dish is my tomato and ginger chutney, which is so versatile it would be the perfect complement to many an Indian meal. Heat 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in a pan and add half a teaspoon of both asafoetida and red chili powder. Allow the mixture to sizzle, then add 5 tablespoons of finely chopped ginger and cook for 2 minutes. Now add 250 grams of diced tomatoes and 1 tablespoon of tomato puree. Cook this until the tomato begins to break down, then add 200 grams of jaggery, which is unrefined sugar, and 120 milliliters of water. Cook on a low heat for around 10 minutes or until the mixture thickens. Whilst it's cooking, get 1 tablespoon of oil really hot in a small frying pan, then add 2 teaspoons of mustard seeds, 20 curry leaves, and 5 broken dried red chilies. Remove from the heat and add to the tomato mixture. Stir well and add salt to taste. Spicy, aromatic, and delicious. I've enjoyed creating contemporary dishes inspired by tribal traditions of the Bishnoi, the hospitable desert tribe whose cuisine is still influenced by the climate and environment to this day. In the kitchens at the palace of Umayyad Bhavan, these traditions are in turn interpreted to create sophisticated cuisine. I was overwhelmed by its subtlety and delicacy when I tasted it, and the inspiration it provided will stay with me for a very long time. Being at the desert and being at the palace, trying out all these extraordinary dishes, and what I found was that we're in such a hot country, and yet the flavors of the food is just so subtle. It's light and really healthy. And what I found really extraordinary was the fact that you can take the basic ingredients and you can make something really exquisite. It's using one's own imagination and trying to create something which is really extraordinary.